This episode is brought to you by Abercrombie. There's nothing better than the perfect jean and going out top combo, or an outfit that perfectly matches your plans. Abercrombie's relaxed jean goes with every occasion. Date nights with something lace, or daytime with a cozy sweater. And their barrel jean will surprise you. It's the trend that will become a staple in your wardrobe. Abercrombie denim comes in tons of rises, fits, and washes. Find your perfect pair online or in store.
Portland is famous for its music, coffee, craft beer, and a little sneaker brand, Nike. But our city and state's influence goes far beyond that. So today on CityCast, Portland producers John Notarianni and Giulia Fiaoni are helping me dive into the best products and brands that got their start right here or around here-ish. We're celebrating our state's biggest exports that have made a mark not just across the country, but around the world. It's Wednesday, February 12th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. John, Giulia, how's it going?
Hey, Claudia.
Good morning.
Okay, so the original idea for this episode was to only mention brands that got their start in Portland proper. But as we started brainstorming, we all got so excited for everything regional that we love, we could not limit ourselves. And we also decided that we weren't going to name the super obvious ones like Nike and Tillamook. So we each picked 3 localish brands that we personally have some connection to and have become either national or worldwide exports. And we picked them also because we think they have a really interesting foundation story.
I was surprised when we started putting together a list just how many companies and brands are from Portland and Oregon. You know, we came up with dozens of options. So it was actually hard to sort of narrow down our lists.
For sure. John, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. First one I want to talk about is what I would say is the most influential athletic wear company in American history that is not Nike, Jantzen Swimsuits. So Jantzen got started as a knitwear company in Portland in 1910. They made sweaters and stuff. But then the rowing club on the Willamette River was cold. So they got this company to make them wool rowing suits, right? So that they could row on the river over the course of the winter. Then they decided we could turn this into a bathing suit as well, you know? Because before that, I don't know if you knew this, but bathing suits actually looked like little suits and dresses.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I didn't know this until I started researching.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, no, because, propriety, John.
Yeah. So, but then Jantzen made this swimsuit that took the world by storm. This Jantzen swimsuit, they started advertising it everywhere. It was on billboards. It was in Vogue and Life magazine. Movie stars were wearing it. And it just became synonymous with the swimsuit because their whole thing was this is not a bathing suit. We've created a swimming suit. Mm-hmm. So it was the global first swimsuit and launched this global revolution of people wearing swimsuits.
That's crazy.
Started here in Portland on the Willamette River.
Okay, so Jantzen swimwear. I always wondered, is there a connection to Jantzen Beach?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh. So what is that connection? Did they just name that after the swimmer? What came first?
The company came first. I mean, this was a global brand, right? Mm-hmm. By the 30s, they were the 7th most well-known trademark on the planet, you know? Mm-hmm. They were the Coca-Cola of the 1930s.
Wow.
And they actually had a Jantzen amusement park that they started.
Oh, there in that area?
I believe it was where Jantzen Beach is today, yeah. So yeah, just the way that Nike is kind of synonymous with Portland today, it was all about Jantzen in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah, and now it's kind of this niche, cool brand. Maybe I'm just
school.
Not hip with swimwear, but I remember when I thought I discovered it, and I was oh, look at these cool retro swimsuits. And you're just it's been here forever. There is a beach named after it.
Yeah. Yeah, and they did, in 2002, they got purchased by Perry Ellis International, so they're now a subsidiary of that mega corporation, but started here in Portland.
That's so cool. Yeah, they made one of my favorite swimsuits that I've gotten the most compliments in. It was one of those things where I'm just like, it's just a swimsuit, whatever. But I lost it. And I don't know how you lose a swimsuit, but I figured it out.
Wait, how did you lose it?
I don't know. It's just
You don't know how, but you know how to.
I know. I was like, did I go home naked? Like, what happened?
That would be very 18th century of you. Yes.
I know. I don't know, man. I lost it. Well, what about you, Julia?
Well, I'm going to jump in here with another water-related brand. So I'm talking about Bumblebee Tuna, which started in Astoria, which honestly feels so fitting to me. I think it's maybe because of that little like iconic bumblebee with the chef's hat that they have on all their branding, but it feels very Astoria to me. And they've been in the business for over 120 years.
Whoa.
Their origins go all the way back to 1899 when 7 fish canners in Astoria came together to form the Columbia River Packers Association. And it wasn't until 1910 that they actually started really focusing on albacore tuna. Their roots are actually in salmon, but they just realized there was so much of an abundance of albacore that they started moving in that direction. And they started branding their cans with that Bumblebee label, which was named after one of the original ships that they used to go out and fish with. So that's where that Bumblebee name comes from.
Aww,
So cute.
little Bumblebee.
I love how I'm leaning into the cuteness because it's about to get not cute in recent history.
I mean,
I was going to say, didn't they like decimate the fish population of like the entire...
John.
I'll let you.
Definitely that.
John, let her tell the story.
Sorry.
Well, here's the thing. So it wasn't until 1950 when that little bumblebee came around, but the company actually moved to San Diego in the 70s. So that's where they're still headquartered out of. And they just really blew up from the 70s through the 90s. But that's where overfishing comes from, right? Like any fish-based company can be accused of that nowadays. There's been so much research done. It's not environmentally friendly to be fishing on that corporate level. So they're not isolated in that truth. It's just a fact of the matter. But the thing is, once the 90s kind of phased out and we're into the early 2000s, into the 2010s, people were eating like half the amount of canned tuna than they used to, like literally half. It was like originally 4 pounds a year to now like 2 pounds or less because it wasn't seen as healthy as it once was and people were more into fresh fish.
The dolphins.
All of that, all of these like different things that were discovered over the years. So their business started going downhill in this way that they didn't anticipate. It was mostly just based off of the trend of how people were eating. And then back in 2020, they actually filed for bankruptcy after they were being caught price fixing with 2 other canned fish brands, Chicken of the Sea and Starkist.
I knew it was Starkist. They just seem shady. You know what I mean? Starkist, whatever.
Like, canned fish brands look so cute and sweet, but they're up to some bullshit, I'm telling you. So they were caught. They were fined millions. They had to pay millions in litigation. And they were like, we literally are just like barely surviving. So they sold the company off to Fangchun Formosa Fishery Company, FCF. They sold off for $928 million. So it's still a U.S. brand, but it's owned and operated by a company in Taiwan. But the thing is that I discovered that's especially dark. This is a complete side tangent.
Oh my God.
Take us
Somebody
deeper.
actually died back in 2012 in one of their factories because...
Oh, I heard about this.
It's terrible. So Jose Molina, back in 2012, was working in the factory. It was a part of the factory where the tuna cans are already packed and they're put into pressure cookers to seal. And himself and coworker were in the factory area. The coworker didn't see where Jose was, thought they went to the bathroom, but they were actually inside of the pressure cooker doing maintenance. So coworker closed the door on the pressure cooker, started immediately filling the pressure cooker from the top with 12,000 pounds of canned tuna while Jose was still inside, and then immediately turned on the pressure cooker to 270 degrees and didn't find out until after that there was someone inside. And it was this huge deal. Obviously, the company and those employees were brought into a lawsuit, but like really like wild situation for this company to be associated with. And I'm surprised more people don't know about it. It was the first time that I heard about it. John, had you heard about it before? I know Claudia had.
I did not know about that. This was in Oregon?
Yeah.
Well, I don't really know specifically, but it was in 2012, so they're no longer headquartered in Astoria anymore. So
Can I change the vibe in like the most dramatic way imaginable? Is
Yes,
that okay?
Please do. Save us from this.
Can I just apologize to every listener who's like driving to work and is like super bummed right
It's
now?
just terrible.
Take it away.
This is my first association with bumblebee tuna, which I believe I found this on a mixtape cassette in a parking lot of a strip mall in suburban Michigan in the late 90s. Here we go.
This makes it so much worse.
So that is a song by the band Mephistopheles, the legendary 90s ska band.
That's hilarious.
That song was very hot in suburban Michigan in the late 90s.
Very hot, just to one John, yeah.
By one John Notarianni's cassette Walkman.
You know what? I now have merged Julia's terrible story with that song.
Oh, it makes it sound even more sinister.
It's
pretty
not
horrific.
Good.
No.
Maybe my story will cleanse this.
Yeah, let's move on.
Change it up, Claudia.
Okay, mine is also food related.
And water related.
Yes, food and water
Yeah.
related. So my export is Jacobsen Salt, which was founded in 2011, and it's the first company to harvest salt in the Pacific Northwest since the 1800s. Now, they operate out of Netarts Bay, and I've just admired how they've grown, like what started as a super small boutique business into this like nationally recognized brand without compromising their quality. And it's also so admirable how they've popularized such a niche market like high-end salt to Americans, because I feel like before Jacobsen, most people did not know what finishing salt was, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've also been a local company I've been keeping an eye on ever since I accidentally drove there thinking they sold oysters nearly a decade ago. So I was told that there was a good roadside oyster spot in the Netarts Bay area. And driving by, I saw what I thought were piles of oyster shells from the road. And if you are from this area, you know that sometimes that means like, hey, we sell oysters here. And so and I feel like this was before they even had an actual store on their grounds. So I'm driving.
Just ambled into the salt factory.
I just drive down a windy path. They were, of course, confused why I was there. You know, I was like, y'all got oysters? And they're like, no. And I was like,
Why are you here?
Only salt. And I was like, oh, you sell it here? They're like, well, not here. I was like, well, y'all should think about selling oysters. People love oysters. And then I left. So ever since that, I've been like, oh, Jacobsen Salt, the company that does not sell oysters.
That's a good tagline. That should be their new marketing slogan.
I've also had the pleasure of meeting the founder, Ben Jacobsen, at a mutual friend's party and just like found him utterly delightful. For most of the party, he was kind of really vague about like what he did. But once it came out that he was like the Ben Jacobsen of Jacobsen Salt, I learned that he lived for a time in Denmark, and that's where he got into salt. And he taught himself how to make salt by hauling buckets of seawater in his Subaru to his house in Portland. And that's how he learned to process the kind of salt he wanted to make,
That's
which
so
is
wild.
such a visual. You know, it's like, to me, that's the most Portland thing. You know,
gonna
just a
say, it's so
Subaru and
Portland.
buckets and like,
Yeah.
And also he tried something like, I forget the exact number that he mentioned, but something like close to 30 spots all over the Oregon and Washington coast before landing on Netarts, because he was just like, that was the taste I wanted, you know?
Oh, I love that.
To this day, the operation is still in Netarts and it still does not sell oysters.
I will say, I mean, obviously sea salt is like a technique from antiquity, but I feel like Jacobsen was the first salt that I saw where it was like, that salt is beautiful.
Yes.
You know, like some
The
of like
marketing,
the, I
everything,
mean,
yeah.
just like the crystal structure of it and just like, oh my gosh, love it.
All right, well, let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, a few more of our local exports.
You know what's smart? Enjoying a fresh gourmet meal at home that you didn't have to cook. Meet Factor, your loophole in the laws of mealtime. Chef-crafted meals delivered with a tap, ready in just 2 minutes. You know what's even smarter? Treating yourself without cheating your goals. Factor is dietitian approved, chef prepared, and you plated. Pretty smart, huh? Refresh your routine and eat smart with Factor. Learn more at factormeals.com.
Build a routine with Ollie that supports your wellness needs. like getting your daily vitamins and minerals with Ollie's multi-gummies, or keeping your mood upbeat with all the vitamin D in Hello Happy. Give your gut health some support with probiotics, and wake up feeling refreshed after taking Ollie Sleep. Do wellness on your terms. Find Ollie at a Walmart or Target near you or at ollie.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
All right, John, what do you got?
I'm going to talk about bubblegum. Big League Chew. You know, the like gum that comes in a packet to like look like chewing tobacco.
It's hurt many a jaw.
Yeah. Yeah. Just filling your mouth with it and then you can't like, yeah. Big League Chew started in Portland and it actually has a great story behind it. So it was actually started by this guy, Rob Nelson, who had been a professional baseball player in South Africa when he heard about the Portland Mavericks. You know the Portland Mavericks story, right, Claudia?
Of course. I know the Portland Mavericks. Not even a minor league baseball team. I don't know. Like one step above a rec league.
Yeah, yeah. And the owner in the 70s did like open call outs for people to come and join the Portland Mavericks.
Mm-hmm. Who was Kirk Douglas's dad? Sorry, go on.
Yeah. There's a great documentary about it, The Battered Bastards of Baseball, which you should check out on Netflix if you have a rainy afternoon to tie up. Anyways, so Rob is in Portland pitching for the Portland Mavericks, and like all of his other baseball buddies are chewing tobacco, and he thought that was gross and he didn't want to. So he's like, well, what if we shredded bubble gum and put it in a pouch to make it look like chewing tobacco? And everyone's like, that's a weird idea. Okay. So he bought a make your own bubble gum kit. And I love this. He went to the kitchen of the Mavericks bat boy, this guy Todd. So he's
Todd's kitchen.
He's in Todd, the bat boy's kitchen, like cooking up pots of make your own bubble gum. I guess the first batch was like maple and root beer flavored. But he kept working at it and made this sort of baseball bubble gum and started like shopping it around to candy companies. And he got a big contract with Wrigley, and nobody thought it was going to do anything. In the first year, they hit sales of $18 million. Wow. It was just like a runaway success. Everybody wanted this like weird bubblegum, that looked like chewing tobacco. I mean, when you think about it, it's kind of insane, right?
Yeah.
But since the 1980s, it's sold over 800 million pouches.
The 80s were the golden age of selling tobacco-like candy to children. I totally grew up, Julia, chewing on that, fake tobacco chew, smoking on candy cigarettes.
Yeah. Candy cigarettes,
I remember I like fake stub them out and everything.
Yeah.
The fact that I'm not a smoker to this day is just like, I don't know how, because I was prepped from birth to smoke and chew tobacco.
You know what's funny too is that lasted. Like I remember doing a very similar thing, ending up at these little league games, watching my friends play baseball in early middle school, buying Big League Chew. And I don't think I ever put that connection together at the time, but it was still just as popular and like something that I on occasion will kind of crave, like that.
Oh, yeah.
Almost like Hubba Bubba-esque, like chewy, powdery.
What was your flavor?
Just regular bubble pink.
What about you, John?
I think the go-to is grape, actually.
Mine was grape.
Man.
Absolutely grape.
I'm normally not a grape
terrible.
person. Somehow Big League Chew got to be grape. So Claudia, I don't know if you remember, I actually did a story about this back at OPB. And Rob, the guy is still around, and he's like a bubblegum millionaire and is sort of just like living his best life as like a bubblegum ambassador, He's just like the chillest dude. And unprompted, he sent me 2 cases of Big League Chew.
Do you still have some?
To my desk at OPB. So for a year, I was just like the guy with all the gum at his desk at OPB, just like passing out packets of Big League Chew because I had all of this, just like boxes of it under my desk.
John, you unlocked a memory. That is the last time I had Big Chew.
It was when I was desperately trying to get rid of 30 pounds of it that was under my desk.
I remember it was a very delightful day at OPB.
Well, I have another Oregon brand for y'all. I'm talking about Dutch Bros.
Dutch Bros.
Started by 2 brothers in Grants Pass in 1992 off the side of a railroad track, Dane and Travis Boersma. They were working in the dairy industry at the time on their family farm, And they wanted to make coffee really bad. So they invested in a really nice espresso machine and put together this coffee cart and started playing really, really loud music in their neighborhood, and people started showing up. And they named the company off of their Dutch heritage. And their focus over the years, once the coffee brand started blowing up, was to make sure that the brand was focused on drive-through coffee. And they specifically open up in suburban and more rural areas because they wanted to target folks who are more likely to be driving through in a vehicle. And one of the things that their company is really known for is how welcoming their employees are. A lot of the times you'll go through Dutch Bros and people are blasting music and they're eager to ask you about your day. There have been a number of viral moments over the decades where employees are seen praying with folks who have just been through tragedy, like through their car, like multiple employees putting hands on a customer. In a Forbes article that I was reading, it was mentioned that one of their young franchisees in Portland gave flowers and a month's worth of free iced coffees to a regular who had just lost their husband. So they really go above and beyond. But the thing is, though, is that approach in their culture kind of gets a little bit of flack because, as a lot of folks have experienced, when you have a company that's very much based around this like all the time positive, above and beyond customer service, it can put a lot of pressure on the employees. So there have been trends going around on TikTok and even in this Forbes article wondering if Dutch Bros is kind of like a cult. And one of the things that's interesting that's come up, I'm sorry, all of mine are very dark.
Jesus Christ, Julia.
Is there have been folks on TikTok talking about how they've had to go to therapy because of their time at Dutch Bros. And how sometimes their meetings with their managers kind of cross personal boundaries of them making suggestions of, oh, maybe you should go to therapy because you're not being very receptive to our model, things like that. But also on the flip side, the company makes it very attractive for young baristas to be able to own their own franchises where they're offering them very little upfront pay with pretty significant loans. And within a few years, they're actually making quite a bit of money. So the model is working for a lot of people, but it has created what they call this like broista culture, which really works for some people and really doesn't work for others. So it's not necessarily like it's all bad or all good. It's just kind of what you sign up for when you choose to work for them.
I'm just thinking like, Trader Joe's has a similar vibe. And I wonder if anyone's ever considered Trader Joe's a cult.
Yeah.
John, you're just nodding. You're like, yeah, of course.
I think there's a subtlety in Trader Joe's that wouldn't draw as much attention. Like, I think it's kind of funny because I have noticed that the experience working there from what I've researched is similar to their customer base, where since I've moved to Portland and Dutch Bros is just more readily available, I've met a lot of people that really love Dutch Bros and I met a lot of people that really hate Dutch Bros. And it's for one reason or another. So I need to know, how do both of you guys feel about Dutch Bros?
So I feel like Dutch Bros is one of those places that, like, if you're in the vicinity of a Dutch Bros, you have a different relationship to it than if you just don't, right? It is somewhere you sort of stop on the way. It very much is like a drive-through coffee place. And I've never lived in a place where like a Dutch Bros is a go-to for me. So what sticks in my mind is the story from a couple years ago when Dutch Bros like did a public offering and like, went on the stock market. So this happened in like 2021. There's this photo of one of the co-founders of Dutch Bro hitting the bell at the New York Stock Exchange.
Wow.
While wearing a Rage Against the Machine t-shirt, which led to the very brilliant headline from Brooke Jackson Glidden, quote, "Immune to irony, the Dutch Bros guy wore a Rage Against the Machine shirt to Wall Street."
Oh, Brooke, wherever you are, applause.
Yes.
That is like everything of Dutch Bros.
And here I am wearing my Dead Moon shirt, so annoyed I didn't buy stock when they opened.
And they've been blowing up since the pandemic because they were a consistent drive-through chain, right? And now they have like almost 1,000 locations, mostly in Texas, California, and Oregon. They're wanting to expand to 4,000. And they're just like off to the races. But I think the coolest thing is that they're still headquartered in Grants Pass and all the coffee beans are roasted there, which is really sweet, cool. Right? Yeah. I hope it sticks that way. Travis, one of the original brothers, is still the CEO. But yeah, kind of an interesting and controversial little history.
CE bro.
Wow.
All right.
Okay.
That's enough.
And you better not cut down that pause because that was real. You threw it up, John, and everybody was like, nope. Everyone put their hands in their pockets.
Oh, I knew it was just going to hang there. I knew that one was going to have some hang time.
Oh, man.
Wow.
So this one is for my comic nerds. Dark Horse Comics, which was founded in Milwaukee, Oregon. Now, Mike Richardson started it in 1986 using money that he earned from his chain of Portland comic book shops called Pegasus Books. You keep nodding, John. You knew about this? I had no clue.
I actually have interviewed Mike before. So yeah, I know the Dark Horse.
Okay.
Oh.
I want everyone to know that he also then took a very smug sip of his coffee.
So smug.
So they're now the fourth largest comic publishing company in the U.S., and they're the home, like the original home of Hellboy, The Mask, and Sin City. And they've also partnered with huge entertainment franchises like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Star Wars, Godzilla, and Predator. And in the early 90s, they expanded into a film and television motion picture wing, called Dark Horse Entertainment, which is also based out of Milwaukee. And I had no clue. And they started producing their comic book titles into films and television. So they actually did produce The Mask starring Jim Carrey. And pretty much every Hellboy movie along with Time Cop. And they've also done animated and live action TV series, like their most recent Netflix partnerships, Samurai Rabbit, The Usagi Chronicles, and The Umbrella Academy, which both very, very popular. So very, very, very successful. But how I learned about them was as a super nerdy teenager looking for darker, edgier comics when I was like 13, 14. And I believe their Dark Horse Presents series might have been actually the first comic book I ever bought. And what led me to stuff like the Hernandez Brothers, Love and Rockets, and The Sandman, which was unfortunately written by Neil Gaiman. So they were like a total jumping off point for me for getting me into weirder, darker, more artistic graphic novels. And so they will always hold a very special place in my heart.
Yeah, I also was a nerdy teen reading comic books and also had Dark Horse comic books. And the Dark Horse ones were the ones that I hid from my mom.
Because they were so dark. Yeah.
They were dark, man.
Especially the Dark Horse Presents series. If you don't know about that series, a lot of like new artists would debut these short stories in them. And then either certain characters would jump off and then they would get their own series or whatever. But I remember I had a few of those. And that's how I learned about a lot of artists and followed up on them.
Oh, that's so sweet. I have like absolutely no personal connection to this, but I love like hearing the really, really sweet trajectory of a brand like this, where it does still kind of sit in those like personal anecdotal roots.
I think it's crazy too. It's hard to remember like the mid 90s, like how big Dark Horse was, with The Mask. The Mask was like the biggest movie in the world.
Which is crazy. Milwaukee, you guys.
Yeah, from Milwaukee.
I love it. All right, guys, for our last one, we're going to do a lightning round. And I'm going to time each of us. We each get a minute and we jam through our favorite Oregon export. John, you want to go first?
All right.
3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, Seth Tibbett. In the 1970s, he was one of the few people growing and selling tempeh in America. Tempeh, not a great way to get rich. So he started looking around for his next business idea and decided as a vegan, he wanted something better for Thanksgiving. Enter the tofurkey. He created the first tofurkey out of tofu after experimenting with stuffed pumpkins, which were not good. Started making tofurkeys in 1995. He was mocked, but then it blew
30
up.
seconds.
Oh my gosh, I'm going too fast. But then it blew up. It caught on. He sold 3.5 million tofurkeys across the country and is one of the first like meat alternatives that most people know. Tofurkey,
10,
based
9.
in Hood River.
Nice. Tofurkey in Oregon. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's kind of amazing because, like, to me, I don't know why. I thought it was like made somewhere in the East Coast, Vermont, perhaps.
Made in Hood River.
That is so cool. All right, Julia, you want to go next?
All right, count me down.
Yeah. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, Dave Dahl, back in the 70s, 9 years old, working at his family-run small bakery right in Portland, Oregon. Really struggled in school, suffered from bipolar disorder, ended up in jail for 15 years after being in the Marine Corps, after getting involved in drug use and burglary, lots of things. Speed forward to 2003, welcome back into the family business, ended up selling bread at different Portland farmers markets around town, trying to get into a fresh
30
start.
seconds.
Develops Dave's Killer Bread, really takes off. Now it's one of the #1 organic brands in the US. Ended up selling it in 2015 for $275 million. And the coolest thing about this company is that they are second chance employment to this day, even after being sold off. So your criminal background is not even considered in your application.
6,
and they
5.
give a lot of people second chances.
Nice.
Hit
Perfect.
the post. Very
50
nice.
at 58. Okay, somebody want to time me?
I got a clock ready. I'll count you down. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, Danner Boots was founded in 1932, but if you go to their site, they claim to have been founded in Portland, Oregon, but a deeper search shows that actually Charles Danner started the company in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, and then moved out west in 1936, making boots specific to the needs of loggers. But since then, Danner Boots has been handmade here in Portland, Oregon, and because they started as workwear, they built a reputation for being tough and long-lasting. Like, they're expensive, I'm not gonna lie, but it's kind of an item that you buy once and it lasts you for decades. I've owned a pair of boots for 11 years. They also have a recrafting wing where you can take your old boots and get them rebuilt to new. They just have that old school mentality of standing by your product and not making stuff that ends up in the dump. What makes them so Portland to me is that they base their entire business and ethos on quality and craftsmanship, because they knew people would buy them because they were that good. And they started in the Depression era.
10, 9.
That's all I got.
8.
Love that.
Nice. 53. I have a pair of Danner boots that I love. And the shirt that I am wearing right now is a Pendleton shirt, but I bought it at the Danner store.
Hey, I have Good Seed Dave's Killer Bread in my freezer.
We should actually open up with that story.
I have Big League Chew in my mouth right now.
I would die if that was the case.
I would be so impressed because I was like, you can enunciate super well the gum in your
Big cheeks.
Big cheeks.
Big old cheeks.
Oh, man. Well, guys, thank you for hanging out with me. I hope that everyone listening, I don't know, we should feel proud because there are so many more exports that we weren't able to talk about. So I don't know if we're going to maybe continue this as a series or whatever, because there were like 20 more, you know? So yeah, I'm excited if we end up doing this, maybe get some of the people who started them in here to talk to us. That'd be cool.
That'd be cool.
Okay. All right, guys, have a good one.
Thanks, Claudia. Bye.
Thank you.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend, rate or leave us a review. It really does help us out. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.